So what we've done, what are the things that we've done? So we've got 9 CBD sites today and 3 suburban sites. I don't want to put ugly in there. I'm a designer, I can't possibly be ugly if there's any design involved. Good, bad, and just about, just missed the mark a little bit, baby. So here's the CBD map again. This is the CBD proper. This is the 4 avenues. These were the original cordons, the green site. So when we first started, that's what we had to deal with. That is the ESCO site, the neon one, so push that button, you go there. So there's Victoria Green, which it grew into once it got built and it was green instead of brown and grey. We've got one out in Riccarton, St Aston Street site here, the latest in Kilmore. So some of these are pretty high profile sites in terms of the amount of traffic moving past. The problem is they're moving past them all the time and transportation engineers. The bus exchange, the Fitzgerald Community Garden, which is probably my favourite, and I'll talk about that in a second. And I'll just go through here because we've got one out in New Brighton, which is sort of over here. Rotherham Street, which is our Labour site actually. This was Riccarton Road. This was the first just about. So we came off Victoria Green, sort of feeling all good about ourselves, and we were pretty cool. And this one fell over. Didn't even get good. So the Tier 1 site, again we had control and we're doing our things. Canterbury University volunteers getting rid of some graffiti. Design, it was built. Some of the stuff was built. Some of the later equipment was built. Weed clearing and things. No resource of consent. Landowners will come. So that's a bit of a come down. Park it and move on. St Aston Street. This was a city council one, and it was outside parking. Some of you will probably recognise that beautiful sign. That's a Wilson's car park sign. So we sort of got into muck, I guess, and just did a bit of, I needed some seating. I was right on the edge of the red zone, so it was sort of, when people went to get their gear, this was one of those sites that from a strategic level we went, let's get something there, so that when they're going in, and they're sitting there sort of waiting for the army or whoever to let them in, Jerry Brownlee or whoever it was at the time, they'd sit there, and they'd go, that's green. So from a profile builder, it was fantastic. Won't labour too much on these, but comparatively, compared to ASCO, this was a 4-month build because it was on the edge of the red zone. Every day you turn up and I tell you to come back the next day because the barrier kept bloody moving. Some of the design elements is bespoke gatings and things like that. And here in the cloud, Brand Designs came along and smiled and said it was magnificent, and then had some things to say about the blueprint and missed opportunities. So yeah, good on them. This Pico site. This is one of the sites that the community had, a lot like Linton and Peterborough Street. Real community ownership. A site that everyone went to. It was a little sort of slightly off-centre coffee house that they just loved. It just got demoed. It just fell over. And so we went in there with the owners. We actually did some demolition work here, which wouldn't fly at all now. There were some walls and bits and pieces knocked down. That was a 9-month build time, and that was mainly because the private owner going through the insurance process, which is heinous to say the least. But we get caught up in that, unfortunately. Opus Design, and it's just about finished. It seems to it's one of those projects that don't seem to want to finish. We have Triton Dairy, which is down in Sydney, so it was right in the heart of the plan that COVID's put up earlier, and the next 3 sites are actually all next door to one another. So another 4-month design again because private land ownership input. Dulux came on board and gave us the Lego palette to work with. So the colours that we had were awesome blues, and you'll see in the next site it's pretty off the wall reds and greens. Tanky White came in and gave us all the plants from Alizé garden shade. It's pretty cool. And then the site was pulled down. So that's kind of, you go through this, you stand there, you click, 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 and then, a week later it's all gone. Which is just something that you learn to deal with. And it's kind of heartbreaking to start with, but when you realise there's another site coming, it keeps you going. This is Coffee Zone, so this is where that site ended up. So a lot of those seats, picked them up, repainted them, reapplied them, and that's where they ended up on top of Gagan Bar. some of them ended up as fences. So that's that whole going back to makeshift, picking things up, making them workable. And what it does, I guess what it does from a design point of view is it really forces you to get things right spatially. You know, rather than just flashing things up to say, I've got the best granite pavers in the history of man, and, you know, and everyone going, whoa, look at the pavers, they're just fantastic. You know, it works spatially, you know, which all design should be the thing that you make work, you know, is that scale and how people move through the space. It's not forcing people. You might have some flash paving in the middle, but if they can't read on how to get in there, interpret how to get in there, it's just a waste of time. So this is sort of the lawns going down, and you know, again the sun's shining. The sun's always shining. Outdoor music room. Now this is a really cool space because this was behind the Triton Dairy, and it was literally where the first site that I showed you before was discontinued. These guys had a 40-foot shipping container that held all the stuff that they had to take out of the dairy. And when they took their dairy away, there was this big space. So with Gap Filler rang us up and said, hey guys, we've got an Australian doco team coming over to talk about temporary spaces. We've got no idea what we want to do here. We've got a spot. So they turned this into a temporary music room. Now the build time says 2 months, but in reality it took about 3 days to put together. It was 2 months from when the first phone call came in to actually get it built, and it was literally finished. I've got the slide, sorry. Oh no, there's the camera guy. He's actually waiting for those to go up. So it was finished about a quarter of an hour before they actually started playing music. And you know, that's still there, and the piano's still there, and you know, kids can go in there and smash on the piano and, you know, cause a ruckus. It's great fun. And you know, the people in the coffee kiosk are, you know, what's that all about? Off their trundle, and you know, again, activated space that would be pretty much redundant. Bus exchange. So we got a little bit formalised on this one because CCC kind of realised that they had their design manual, you know, that engineer's design manual. Sort of, what's that? Oh, it's the manual. Well, we better make someone use it because we've forgotten about it for the past year and a half. So we ended up with this job. But never mind. But you know, some really cool bespoke tiling. This was done by a local artist for broken china out of shops. So she just went up to shops and said, "Can I have all the broken stuff?" Not a problem. No, they've ended up on the ground. So there's that level of sort of community engagement as well. That, you know, for these spaces that are, you know, really urban spaces, you know, right next to a bus exchange where there's no sort of critical mass of residents, there's still that layer of community ownership, even though it's not sort of, I mow the lawn every day, which I think gives green the depth that it is unique actually in the Christchurch context. This is my favourite site. This is a community garden, and probably the reason it's my favourite is because of that. Absolutely no formal design input whatsoever. Not a single design. The only designer that's been there is me, and well actually that's not true. I'm sure other designers have been to it, but the only one that went there to see if it needed design input was me, and I just got to the front fence and said, oh, don't worry about it, you know. And it was, you know, this was real deep community engagement. I hope that didn't sound too weird, but, you know, this was, you know, residents, there's people that live across the road from the site that tend to it every single Tuesday morning. They're there weeding, they're watering, there's critical mass. They've got ownership of the site, not just because they can see it, but just because, you know, because they can go and get a lettuce out of it to start with. But they were there watching, you know, school kids getting involved. They were there watching, you know, the ANZ Bank volunteers, you know, huge amounts of mobilisation. You know, Deaf Aotearoa here, you know, just, you know, one of the real good stories that came out of this whole initiative. You know, and the one that really, when we look back on it, and I talked about this over the weekend with a couple of other trustees, the one that did have that deep level of engagement, you know, the one that you're always kind of searching for, wasn't flash. Actually started out looking probably less than flash, but it's not really what it's about, to be honest. Then we got Salisbury Street. So this is one of our newer ones. This tin shed over here is a coffee kiosk. This used to be the coffee house. Demoed. Needed someone to start earning some money. Rang us up and said, look guys, we're in the middle of nowhere. All we've got to play with is a tin shack. We need something to leverage off. We need something that someone can take a photo of and get in the paper, or you know, that will draw people to the site. So, we went in there and this was a group of Australian students who contacted us through the website, were in New Zealand for a field tour, came to Christchurch, said we can give you half a day, and that's the volunteers. So, no emotional connection to the site whatsoever, just wanting to be part of the initiative, and there's sort of the Tonk and other bits and pieces. There's things that could be done better on the site, but, I was talking, our depot, which is just in behind us, I was down there the other day talking to the property owner, and he just, he's got a smile from ear to ear because he's had four press articles already, and people are coming in saying, saw your coffee house in the press, I saw the garden in the press and the coffee house. And so again, that level of, enough engagements. It's just about, they're propping us up and we're propping them up. And at the end of the day, that's what some of this is really, what all of this is really about. Then we have New Brighton. Now, New Brighton is a really interesting one because what we did actually through the NZILA was we engaged Lincoln University, and it was one of their second-year studio papers. So they restructured their whole second-year studio paper, which was design detailing, to fit in with Brendan and Ruddle. So we gave them the sites. They went out there, cleared the whole lot, went through their design process and community engagement, which I'll talk about in a second. Went out and built it. There's the students there. Got built in the weekend. Didn't quite get finished, but never mind. Now, this was a tier 2 site, and this is one of the challenges that we really faced. We were engaged by Renew Brighton to come and help them, because Brighton, it's on the east. When you drive to Brighton, everything's knackered. You go through Darlington. It's a really. I personally find it a really sad state of affairs every time I go through there, because it's still like it was, with just less liquefaction. And you go out there and they were just screaming out for engagement. So what we did is we, lessons learned, we went out to Renew Brighton and said, what's the go here? How can we help? We've got these sites, fantastic. The Renew Brighton contact went to Aussie on holiday for a month. Didn't tell anyone. So the students were banging away in the studio, going through their process, had a delivery date for public consultation. We're sitting there, and as a tier 2 site, we weren't involved in any of that sort of organisation. She left, the day before came around, and the examiner from Lincoln said, where's our meeting with the community tomorrow? I don't know. I said, and that's when he So just picked it up, went out there, and that's where the engagement, the breakdown in communication, our first genuine breakdown in communication, started to filter through to the resolution and ultimately through to how the community accepted it. This site was in for a night, and one of the cool things that we did is we got spades from the volunteer army that we used for the demo. It was one of the students' ideas, and we concreted them into the ground as sort of, like a memorial type thing, and the idea was that people could come down and, chuck a spade in the ground, something funky, and whether it was successful or not wasn't really the point. It was just a really cool idea. Well, the next night, this boardwalk was set on fire, and most of these shovels were removed. Half of the spider was dug up, which is a good effort, because they're truck tyres, and so they're half on the ground. So whoever went there and decided to interact with the site did a bloody good job. And it was only talking to the guys today and listening to some of the discussion around community engagement that in reality we missed the mark. We didn't get the buy-in, we didn't get the engagement, and part of that was because of that communication breakdown. Part of it was because we were driven by the university process. We had deadlines to hit, students were going on holidays. And what ended up happening was that there was a portion of the community, and the reality in Brighton is that they have their issues anyway, and quite a few of their more permanent sites been set on fire, and it's just the idle hands thing, And I have no doubt that it was young kids that were just idle, and we hadn't picked up on what if we'd have gone and put, which we've got now, if we'd have gone and put a prefabricated pump skate park in here, we would have had a completely different outcome. But the problem that we had was that when we went to the library and engaged for that day with the community, it was the same people, it was a different demographic. You know, it was people that walked past the site to go to the library. They thought, oh, there'd be something nice to have there. You know, so in hindsight, you know, built-wise, it was good build quality, but we probably missed the mark a wee bit in terms of that community engagement.